All right, good morning, folks from Guam. It is 8:24 a.m. over here, about 1800 back in the States. But anyways, this video is just a little life update and kind of a page update. I haven't really talked much about the first couple years in the Coast Guard. Now it's been a year and 7 months at this point, so we're getting close to 2 years already. It's been a lot of change very quickly, to our lifestyle as a family, and a lot of adjustments, as you could imagine. So this video is kind of just to give an update to friends and family and those followers that I have that may have started following me, or customers that I had as my holster page. I'm gonna basically just kind of give a little bit of a timeline of events from when I joined the Coast Guard to now, and kind of how that happened. So joined the Coast Guard a year and 7 months ago now. Went through a 3-week boot camp called Depot for it's called the Delayed Entry Petty Officer Training Program. It's a 3-week version of the boot camp, and you still do all the normal training regimen that the full boot camp does. It's just a shortened, condensed version for prior service and people that are joining the Coast Guard with specific skills like EMTs and stuff like that. Well, after that, I went to A school, which was 3 months long, for machinery technician rating, which I joined under. And immediately after that, only a week or two later, I went back to the same base that class was held, and then I went through a advanced C school for refrigeration and air conditioning through the Coast Guard, which I had already had this license in the civilian world, but the Coast Guard still wanted me to be licensed in the Coast Guard, yeah, although it's the same thing. So anyways, I did that. That was another month course, so that was like 3-4 months of school straight right there, on top of the almost month I spent in boot camp. So as you can imagine, during this time I really didn't see the family very much. Okay, and then eventually got orders after A school, and those orders were very limited options. It was essentially Guam, California, and Hawaii was on the list for like one day, like less than 24 hours, and they took it off for me. It was either going to be on a Wimsel, which is the biggest ships that the Coast Guard has, that are for essentially their main duty is law enforcement, drug interdiction missions. And then there was the unit that I'm part of now, which is the U.S. Coast Guard Cutter Hickory, which is a 225-foot seagoing buoy tender. Now, I could go into the details of what the operations are of this boat. Essentially, its job is just to go maintain buoys out in its AOR. The AOR here is Guam. So the problem with that is this boat, this ship, has been in its midlife, what it's called, and it's where this boat's like 20 plus years old, and it basically gets sent to the yard after a certain number of years, and is kind of rebuilt almost completely from the inside out, to kind of update it, modernize it, so that it can serve the Coast Guard into the future. The only problem is I showed up to this unit during that time period, and there was lots and lots of delays. I was told when I reported that the boat was going to leave in 3 months, 2 months, a month. Nobody really knew. But once I finally got there, of course, I was able to PCS my family to Guam. We all moved here together. We got like a couple weeks with each other, and then I had to go report into the the ship where the ship was because it was stateside. So it was kind of crazy because I moved my family overseas only to come back stateside and be there for an unknown period of time. Long story short, the boat was broken and it continued to break. There was problems all along the way, and that just extended the time that especially those of us with families were away from our families, because most of us had families in Guam. It was the same situation for everybody. There was maybe like 6 or 7 people on the boat that have families, and the crew is about 40. And people are coming and going, PCSing and stuff like that. But those of us, there was some people there at the unit that had families that have been separated for 2 years plus because of the situation that this boat was in and being so far from home port. So anyways, that was obviously extremely difficult. So to this day, bringing us to now, I'm finally home. The boat is fixed, and it is on its way back to Guam. The command was graceful enough to allow those few of us with families that have been separated for an extended period of time to essentially be home with our families while the ship transits back from the United States to Guam. That's about a 2.5-month transit, somewhere around that. And it's on its way. It's made it a decent way so far. It should be back in about a month and a half or so, without giving too much detail. OPSEC, So, anyways, that's where we're at right now. Is I'm at home spending some well-deserved time, I believe, with the family. We've essentially been separated for the first year and 7 months that I've been in the Coast Guard, minus a few weeks here and there that the command has given and allotted us to come home to Guam, usually for about 3 weeks at a time, which obviously is just enough time to maybe get in a routine, and then you're gone again, and you're back to this crazy thing where you're in a completely 14-hour different time zone trying to maintain a relationship with your family. So as you could imagine, it's pretty difficult, but I think we've done pretty well. Stephanie, my wife, has been amazing, and this wouldn't be possible without her support and taking care of our daughter while I've been away and dealing with all the problems at home, and also just the resiliency to be able to come to this place in the middle of nowhere and power through all of these crazy life changes without me, basically. So, we lost William, which is my wife's brother, my brother-in-law. And, that happened while we were transitioning to moving to Guam. And I wasn't even here to deal with that with her. And, emotionally be there to support her, which was very tough. So kudos to my wife for just the extreme amount of resiliency she has throughout this entire situation. Not only that, but just the day-to-day stuff. Of course, we miss each other and miss doing life with each other. So it's extremely nice to be back. But moving forward, talking about this page, I changed the name from Hellhound Holsters to Hellhound Operations, just to kind of be a little bit more broad, because I don't think I'm going to be making holsters anytime soon, due to where I'm headed in the Coast Guard. So a lot of people don't know the inner workings of the Coast Guard, or it's very slept on in certain ways. And that's for certain reasons. You know, the Coast Guard doesn't have a big PR budget like the other branches, so you don't hear about things very often. It's not very well publicly known, all the different units, all the different job types and whatnot, et cetera, et cetera. So essentially, what's kind of cool is I joined the Coast Guard as a machinery technician, and that allowed me to come in as an E5 with the previous experience I had in the civilian sector, and my previous experience in the Marine Corps back in the day. So it's not like I'm starting from the bottom or anything like that, which is nice. But that being said, I did join a specific rate, which is called in the Coast Guard. It's not a MOS, it's a rate. But that being said, I joined the Coast Guard with the intention of doing Coast Guard Special Operations, which I didn't even know what it was called at the time. I just saw it in some videos and was like, that's what the fuck I want to do. And, you know, I didn't know how to get there, what rating to join. Like, first of all, I had to do what was right for my family, and I was not going to join the military at 32 years old and start at the bottom. So that was a no-go. So I couldn't have joined as what's called a maritime enforcement agent, or could have, but I would have started from the bottom and had to go through a school there. I would have been maybe E3 at a boot camp or something like that. And it would just been a very different path. But luckily for me, I kind of found not really a loophole, but just I found a way in the Coast Guard to try to go the path I wanted to go, or I really in my heart wanted to do, which is what's called DSF in the Coast Guard, which is Deployable Specialized Forces. Now, the Coast Guard released a solicitation, and a solicitation is essentially just a notice saying, hey, you can try out for this thing or whatever. So the problem is in the Coast Guard, especially the unit I'm with, there's not a lot of law enforcement that's being conducted, and a lot of people aren't interested in doing law enforcement. It's more of a blue collar type working environment where we don't even have maritime enforcement specialists on board our vessel. So ever since I joined the Coast Guard, I was asking questions left and right, everybody I could, and be like, hey, do you know how to become part of this unit? There was no clear answer. A lot of people didn't know about it, even internally to the Coast Guard. So it was very difficult to get information on even how would you even start to apply to something like this. Well, luckily I had met some maritime enforcement specialists at the gym. I think it was in like Portsmouth or something like that while we were stuck there. And it just so happened that these two individuals had the previous year tried out for Coast Guard Special Operations. It's called the Tactical Operator Course, or Tactical Operator Screener. And it's a 1 week basically tryout, if you will, where you're tested on various things all across the board. You talk to a psychiatrist while you're there. You're looked up from head to toe, and you're being watched the entire time you're there. It's pretty intense, and it was, I didn't know what to expect when I got there to this course, but it was surprisingly very good and very intense, and what you would expect or hope that they're striving for. They're looking for the right people there, and they definitely have it down. So the Coast Guard put this solicitation out, and it had verbiage in there essentially stating that other rates were allowed to try out. Traditionally, to be part of the Deployable Specialized Forces in a direct action capacity, you would need to be a maritime enforcement specialist, which I am not. I joined as a machinery technician. Like other branches, to be a Navy SEAL, you could be a cook and go be a Navy SEAL, or try to be. At least you could go to BUDS. In the Coast Guard, they traditionally have just maintained it to where maritime enforcement specialists were the only ones allowed to even try out for the deployable specialized forces. Well, it just so happens that basically within the past couple of years, they have incorporated and broadened the pool of people who they're allowing to go to this course, and the basically solicitation states that they're allowing machinery technicians, gunner's mates, and bosun's mates to attend in very small numbers. So only, I believe, 10 MKs, 10 bosun's mates, and 5 GMs, gunner's mates, in the Coast Guard are allowed to even apply or are selected, per se, to even come to this screener. So I had no idea when I applied. Like, it was a shot in the dark, and I had to get command, approval to even do this, because essentially they would be losing me early if I did get selected. So I didn't even know if my command was going to approve it. I didn't know if I was going to get selected to even go. But luck be have it, I put in for it, and I got selected, and I got selected to attend the course. And then from there, I had to perform while I was there. Dance monkey dance, that's what I did. I fucking danced and tried to prove that I had what it took to be part of that community. So moving forward, I was selected. There was about, I think, 200 people or so that applied to the screener. Only 80 people were selected to actually attend. The very first day we lost like 10 people because they couldn't pass their PT test, which is ridiculous. And then from there, we lost a couple other people during that 1 week, and then only 80 people attended or were selected to go. By the end of the course, there was only 30 of us that were selected and put off in this other room, and we had no idea what that meant. We were being called in one by one to this room to be interviewed, and then it was like door A or door B, and you didn't know which one meant what, but we found out, obviously, after the fact, that we were in the good room, that we had been selected. So, that being said, there was only 30 people selected, about 15 which were officer type, O type, and then 15 enlisted. So, just blew my mind. Like, the chance for me to do this job in the Coast Guard is extremely slim, and to be able to only be in about 1.5 years at that point and land not just going to the screener, but there's people that go to the screener multiple times and don't get selected. So I guess they saw something they liked in me, and I'm getting the opportunity to do what a lot of people join the Coast Guard to do, especially MEs, maritime enforcement agents, that never get to do it their entire career. So the community I'm going to is called the DSF, which is the Deployable Specialized Forces in the Coast Guard, and it's comprised of a couple different units, mainly the ones that most people might be familiar with is MSRT and TACLET. I think that's the bread and butter of the DSF. Now, there are all the people that go to Pat Forsois, to Bahrain and stuff like that. That's part of the DSF. And then I think MSSTs are technically part of DSF, but you have MSRT, which is Maritime Security Response Team, and then you have TACLET, which is a Tactical Law Enforcement Team. Now, I received orders to go to TACLET, so the Tactical Law Enforcement Team. And the different mission set between the two teams, if you look at them, they almost look identical, but TACLET TACLET's mission set is essentially drug interdiction, mainly. And then over here, MSRT, Maritime Security Response Team, their main mission set is counterterrorism. So, you know, the training pipeline is almost the same for both, but they just have different mission sets. That being said, moving into the future, I'm going to be, well, I just got orders. So those orders are to a TACLET, and I'm going to be stationed in San Diego. And believe it or not, life comes full circle, and it just so happens that I'm going to be stationed at freaking Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego, which is where I went to boot camp in 2011 in the Marine Corps. So it's just crazy how life kind of comes full circle sometimes. So as you could imagine, to be able to do this job, you have to be pretty highly trained, obviously. It is a very prestigious unit to be a part of, and there's only about 200 or so people in the entire deployable specialized forces. So it's a completely different community than what's called the blue side of the Coast Guard, which I'm part of right now. And then you have like the green side, which is the DSF. And they're kind of almost two different worlds. And that's the world I want to be in. So it's going to be really cool, but it's going to be a lot of work ahead of me. So from here, once we leave Guam and report in to San Diego, it's about a 2-year training pipeline. Now, my orders there are for 6 years total. So I have to do an extension on my contract for however much to be able to fulfill that 6 years at that unit. It's about a 2-year training pipeline. Now, even though you've been selected through the selection process, you could still kind of be dropped from the training pipeline for various reasons. But most people, everything that I've heard, if you've been selected, usually you're going to make it through. And that's the whole point of the selection process, is they're pre-screening the people they know that have what it takes to make it through the training pipeline. But I guess before the screener was in existence, they were just allowing people to go to DSF and they weren't making it through, or they had a lot of people quitting halfway or whatever because they found out it wasn't what they wanted to do or whatnot. So anyways, it's a 2-year training pipeline. There's a lot of courses that I'm going to have to go through, a lot of classes. And then from there, I'll be operational for 4 years, essentially doing the mission once I'm fully qualified. So 1.5 to 2 years to get fully qualified to do the job. So that being said, my page from here on out, I'm not going to probably be able to do holsters for, the foreseeable future, which I really enjoy doing. It was definitely a good hobby, especially when I was still working from home. It gave me something to do, kind of gave me some purpose, and I do still want to maintain that in some way, shape, or form. But I think I'm going to shift this page more to kind of like an insight to the Coast Guard and an insight to what the deployable specialized forces is, to the extent that I can. Now, one reason you don't hear hardly anything about the Coast Guard and especially the DSF is that it's highly secretive, and obviously that's for a reason. So from my understanding, some of the dudes I've talked to that are already on the teams and stuff like that, they highly recommend that you don't even have an Instagram page or social media period, because you are literally out there on the front lines taking out these narco terrorists, and like coming face to face with them. So, obviously being on social media to where people can easily track you and stuff like that's not very good when you're dealing with the cartel, because they could obviously come after you if they find out who you are. So, I'm going to try to kind of within regulation, see how much I can document this process and keep everybody updated and posted. I'm thinking about maybe doing some type of Coast Guard merch in the future, and we'll see though. I'm going to be extremely busy, and this, like I said, was more of an update to friends and family that might not understand what I've been up to the past year and a half, and what my life's looked like in the Coast Guard since. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. But if anybody's interested in joining the Coast Guard, even some of my old Marine friends that might be out there that just want to, serve a little bit more or whatever, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, or if there's anybody interested. I don't really get anything out of it, so it would just be to share that information. But yeah, got a crazy couple years ahead of us. Being part of the DSF is extremely demanding, and it's going to be extremely demanding on the family, but it's going to be nice being back in the States. I will be in training for about a year and a half, so hopefully won't be being deployed during that time period, to give us kind of a break from what this craziness that has been for the past couple years. But that being said, once I'm fully operational, I will be deployed a lot. And I will not be only deploying on U.S. ships. I will be also deploying on U.S. allied ships, as well as the subject matter expert for maritime enforcement and VBSS. So, yeah.